But I find it kind of makes me really concentrate, very hard, in more so than, I mean, I believe it's so important to concentrate on every word in a poem, but this sort of time to even, uh, I don't know, it makes me simplify things a bit too, which I don't think is bad. I used to write a lot of much more flowery stuff in the sense.
It's interesting what you said about sort of being forced to concentrate on the line endings, because you tend to expect that to come from writing more formal verse, don't you? But by having that sort of freedom, I guess, you've got to do something to shape the poem.
Yeah,
Because the form's not doing it in a
invent.
preordained way, you've got to invent that.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
you find
but
it
also for logic, yeah, for meaning as well. Because it was quite interesting. I saw somebody who'd written an unpunctuated poem same way, and somebody who'd criticised it and said, this was better with punctuation. And she'd put punctuation in, but she'd also relined the poem. And then I looked at that and I saw, in fact, after she'd relined it, the punctuation could come out again. Because but what was wrong was that originally the lines needed relining more than it needed punctuation. Yeah.
And also, there's something to do with what you're doing now, which takes advantage of the shape on the page. Because I was sort of looking through those, I was thinking to myself, the space around the poem is almost as important as the poem itself.
Mm.
So you become aware of every sort of space that you've got. If you indent a line, or if there's a space between stanzas,
Yeah.
or the shortness or the length of the line, that suddenly becomes more acute than it does in a more formal form.
I mean,
Reminds me of Tom Gordon.
I still found I went back and wrote one poem recently in normal form, but then I wondered. In fact, I thought I could probably work it this way as well.
Yeah.
I'm getting very attached to this form, maybe over attached to it, but then maybe it's just like a sort of, how painters go through a certain period.
Yeah.
And I think this to me is very important for me to be always trying new things and moving and changing, because the idea of writing the same style and the same thing for year in year out to me is deadly.
And of course, it's boring for readers as well.
Yeah,
If they find a
exactly.
poet
Yeah,
doing the same thing again
yeah,
and again.
yeah.
You've got to think about people who actually read it.
Yeah, I do have this thing that I don't think poets think enough of their readers. They rather expect them to be into poetry, and therefore if they pick up a poem, they've got to read it through, to find what's there. And I don't think that's, I think poets should think more like novelists and think, you've got to start by getting the reader into it and then keep them there.
Saying, if it bores you,
Yeah.
it's going to be something going to bore you reading.
Yeah.
Do that one for us, Milner, when you're ready.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard you read that.
Yeah.
It's one of my favourites.
Oh, this was the one that was actually used by the television.
I don't think I've ever heard you read it.
It was on the television thing I did, yeah. Nunc dimittis. When the sea hog leaps, sharp watches keep. We were close off the Cape of Finisterre, and the dolphins were dipping as far as perceptible, and a kind of anger was fastened in the sea. That night took Ben Arden, and there was no way to go back for him. It was when all those fishes were leaping and blowing from rise to set, and the moon near out, that I saw this green island to the west, where no island was. And it was like a place you would dream to die. That evening of the night that drowned Ben Arden in a westerly gale. Look there, girl. Look. Look there beyond the pier. Is that an island where no island ought to be? Yeah, that was the one that, say, the television people did, and they ended up by having me rowing off into the sunset and disappeared in this little boat.
A little bit of a tempest in there.
I, I did not consciously, but there again, who knows? All these. Uh, uh, it could be that. It could be classical, the islands of the classic rock, all sorts of floating islands. Also, I think actually when I wrote it, I was remembering a mirage that I was off the Algerian coast, and suddenly I saw this headland, apparently about 3 or 4 miles off. I thought, bloody hell, I'm still 20 or 30 miles off. My reckoning's very wrong. And then it gradually faded out, and it was, as I recognized it, well, by that evening when I actually raised the coast, it was the Cape Caxine that I was aiming for. Yeah, but it came up as a very realistic mirror.
Yeah.
Mm. That was the memory that I think got that one going.
I'm just going to try something, see if we can run a microphone over to you.
They didn't record that, did they?
No. Okay. Just going to wait now.
I was just thinking, Milner, hearing you read that last poem and looking at Dancing McCard now, it's quite striking to see the difference between those in Caminante and the ones I've been reading recently, the unpunctuated ones in the new.
Yeah.
It's the difference is quite striking to juxtapose them like that.
But Ed was asking, whether Tempest was in that. But there's a couple here. I'll read another one just afterwards, because where Shakespeare definitely comes in, and of course he comes into this one because of the opening sentences from Romeo and Juliet, Seigneur Capulet. Danse macabre. All past the dancing days, all but their drifted sounds and scents, plucked from a wind that's been far travelling along its reckless paths, and sometimes sings, sighs, roars, comes with a mouthful of spit among the pines that lean over water troubled by a moon. Time missed the windows of the eyes that search within the basket of the skull, where sensuous whispers of such loves that had no fear combine, a sad chorus in each dawn, now that the dancing days are done. The other one that I got to read but I used Shakespeare's name, but I don't think how otherwise it fits. But maybe the theory of chaos, as Shakespeare said, Charlie, not Bill. There is a time in the affair when you must get the fuck out. Ted Shanks, a dreamer, remarked on June Wilde's walk and its after effect on those in long trousers, even skirts. Neither has much regard for Carl Bugatti and his mouth organ, but obsequiously agree with his wife in her selection of dentures. Not one of all those four has heard of dandy Jim Davidson, who resides noisily in Osset with some goats and a collection of erotic cockroaches. But his altercation with Black Toby over the existence of quarks caused a circling of ripples still undetected by seismologists and the perseverance of dowsers. It's important to have fun in poetry, isn't it?